Indigo, Ronojoy Datta, in an exclusive interview, defends his airline's decision to not board a special needs teen, a decision which has outraged many online. Flight safety comes first, he says, but was there a flight safety issue at all? Thanks, sir, very much for being with us. Now, sir, you'd be aware there's this article which is, it's come out on Facebook. It's a post where someone says that the parent of this child told your airline manager, do you know what it means to be a parent to a special child? Do you think as a mother I would ever let my child harm himself or anyone? Did your airline manager know more than this parent?
No, of course not. Not even close, I'm sure. However, flight safety is something that we take full responsibility for. We don't outsource it to other people and take their opinions and input. And really, let me first talk about the overall philosophy of flight safety, because it's very important to understand that. We say we have these pillars, which are customer service, affordable fares, reliability, and they're very important. However, we always tell our employees that flight safety is number one. And if you're in doubt, please always err on the side of flight safety. So how do we make sure that flight safety is not just lip service, but is actually working? One is training. And training, as I said, is everything else is important, customer empathy is important, but please, you are finally responsible for flight safety. The second thing is empowerment. We don't try to second guess the captain's decision when he says, I think I should divert. Or the flight attendant's decision, I think we should evacuate. Or the airport manager's decision, I don't think we should board at this time. And remember, flight safety is a partnership between the DGCA and the airline. And the DGCA is very clear on what our responsibilities are. There are two CARs, as they call, 4.3 and 4.4. And they say very clearly, hey, airline, you are responsible for screening the passengers during the boarding.
Mr. Datta, I understand that completely, and there is nothing more important than flight safety. That's paramount. But in a situation like this, was flight safety being compromised? His parents would know how to have handled his meltdown, apparently with patience, cajoling, sternness. This is what this article says. Hugs, other passengers didn't seem to have a problem. So the flight safety concern you mentioned, what others are suggesting is that it wasn't a flight safety issue as well. The same passenger flew with you yesterday.
This passenger, I'm happy to say, flew with us 50 times.
Right.
Over the past few years. 50 times.
So then why was he stopped on this particular flight?
In this particular case, he was in a panic situation for whatever reason. And if you look at flight safety, incidents happen when the crew is distracted. It's never one thing. Something happens, the crew is distracted, something more important happens, and the crew doesn't pay enough attention to it. So that is why the CARs are there. The CAR says, please scan all your passengers and make sure there's no potential disruption on the flight. It doesn't say you have to be 100% sure, but please make sure there's no potential disruption.
Right. Now, I'm not suggesting that the airline broke the rules technically, but there is an issue of sensitivity and there is an issue of understanding. For example, apparently the airline told the parents that if the child did not quieten down and become quote unquote normal, then he would not be allowed to board. I mean, how are we using terms like normal and abnormal? What is normal to me may not be normal to you and vice versa. So,
poor choice of words, I agree. What is important is that the passenger needs to be composed. And it's not whether it's physically challenged child or a normal child or a pregnant woman. It all depends on whether the passenger is normal and composed. We tried our best. And after the incident, we took them to the hotel, came back the next day, no issues there. But we truly cannot compromise that. And remember again, the DGCA is going to do its own inquiry. The rules are very clear on us. We can't be violating the rules of the CAR. Could we be more sensitive? We always try to be. Let me assure you that every one of our customer service agents goes through a training on how to handle special needs people. We do a refresher every 2 years. Every airport has what we call an I-coach that studies issues like autism, sign language, spinal injuries, and they are experts in that area, and then they try and train all our employees.
Do you believe,
so
sir, that your airline manager took the right decision?
I absolutely. We went through the whole process. What happened at this time? What happened at that time? I turned to our head of airport operations and I said, in this particular situation, what would you have done? He said, I do the same thing. I turned to our Delhi airport manager and I said, in this situation, what you would have done? He said, I would have done the same thing. So we are all consistent that we are following everything that we have learned over safety, and we never want to compromise on that.
So apparently the airline manager said, or somebody in the staff of Indigo said, behavior such as this and that of drunk passengers deems them unfit to travel. Again, it's an entirely incorrect equivalence had it been made.
Well, again, I won't defend every word choice, okay? That in the heat of the moment, we can always backtrack and say we should have said this. But I think the concept is the passenger fully composed? And I think the manager is trying to say there are many situations where the passenger is not fully composed. He could have got into a fight. As I said, he could be physically ill. He could be drunk. There are many situations like that, and they all fall into the overall category of, is the customer composed?
So there was a passenger on a SpiceJet flight in 2012 who won a case in the Supreme Court, Jija Ghosh. It was about the use of prosthetics and having to remove a prosthetics before a flight through the security process, etc., etc. But while the Supreme Court did rule in her specific case with regard to the use of prosthetics, it was all about dignity of passengers who are differently abled. Do you believe, sir, more needs to be done to protect that dignity of passengers, perhaps by ensuring that your crew members are better aligned to understanding the needs of different passengers?
There's always room for improvement, okay? As I said, we have very extensive training processes. We have very specialized people studying this on a global basis. They go for refresher training. So I believe we've made great progress. As you can see, little things on our ramp. Our ramp is designed for disabled people. If you see how our code is designed. So the question is, are you doing enough? We're doing a lot. We can definitely do more. One of the things we should do after this internally is definitely do a case study and say, how could we have treated it differently? I'm happy to say that, this particular family has traveled with us 50 times. I hope they'll travel with us 50 times more. This was just one unfortunate incident. But I fully stand by the decision of the airport manager in the stance he took.
All right, Mr. Datta, thank you very much for coming on board. I think it's important that all airlines are transparent, and clearly that's been the effort over here to explain your position. There is a DGCA inquiry being headed, we are told, by a 3-member team which will visit Ranchi, Hyderabad to collect evidence. Let's see what finally emerges. Thank you, sir, very much.
Let's go across. Let's get the other side of the story. Let's go across to Jija Ghosh, manager of Enable India, Joe Chopra, social activist, and Manisha Gupta, a fellow passenger and the witness to the scene, who wrote about this incident in an elaborate Facebook post. Joe Ghosh, first to you. I think you would have seen the CEO's interview to NDTV. He says he's defended the crew's stand and their actions. He says that the rules say there should be no potential disruption on the flight. That's what the Indigo CEO Ranjay Datta stressed in that interview. Your response?
Well, it's a very unfortunate response, and it's just about protecting his territory. And I think it's interesting that the same thing has happened with NDTV. We were all supposed to be on the program.
Apologies, ma'am. We have you on the show now.
Yes, I know.
Because we want to get both sides of the story, and we want to know what actually happened.
Right. But both sides of the story should be heard together. And I think it really is a bit too little too late to be inviting us half an hour after the program is over.
Ma'am, I assure you this is not the last you've heard of this story on NDTV, and we have over the years, I'm sure you will agree, consistently been focusing on this issue.
Right, I know, and that's what Indigo has said as well. There's just so little that is actually done. We talk, but the changes don't happen because disabled people are not given a priority. Even giving me the first chance to speak is wrong. It should be Jija who speaks. She's had this experience.
We don't have
She's
her on.
disabled.
We don't have her on the show yet, ma'am. Technically, she hasn't come through. We would have loved to
Okay.
have gone to her first.
Okay, so let me just say one thing I think that needs to be pointed out about this whole incident that really is worth celebrating is that thanks to Manisha documenting that story so brilliantly, we were able to see how much awareness has actually been created in the country. And we're seeing that people are willing to stand up for what is right, that they are willing to stand up to an official and quote the policies of the airline, the policies of the country, the laws that are in place to support disabled people and their rights. So we saw tremendous action at that airport. And I really take my hat off to Ranchi for its wonderful performance.
So
but
perhaps
the second thing I just want to say is that if that young man, the staffer at Indigo, had gone through inclusive education rather than the education he obviously got, which has been very limited, he wouldn't have had the problem that he had. He wouldn't have been so scared and so a victim of misconceptions that he would be frightened to allow a young disabled boy on the flight.
in a
I
wheelchair.
think inclusive education is what we really need to change this country's trajectory and make things work for disabled people.
Manisha, we do have you. We don't have Jija Ghosh yet. So, Manisha, I'd like to go across to you. Of course, it's amazing that you had the presence of mind, and we have the facilities today. We all have video cameras on our phone, that you recorded all of this, which is why we're able to have this discussion all across the country. We saw what happened actually, right? And you posted, and we have that video you posted on Facebook, that the manager kept shouting and telling everyone this child is uncontrollable. That was, as we see in this video, that was not the case here. But again, my question, what Indigo, the CEO, says is that you can't take a chance while you're on a flight that you could have someone who could react, uncontrollably. Your response?
So I just want to ask, in that video that you're playing over there, can you see the child
Yes.
in any uncontrollable behavior that would be dangerous to other passengers? That's my question to you.
No,
right?
we see him sitting
And-
in a wheelchair silently, quietly.
Right. This is not just my video. There have been other videos that have been tweeted by other passengers where you can clearly see that he's sitting quietly. At that point of time when this video was shot, this boy was sitting quietly for a full 20 minutes where other people, it was not just me, there were a whole lot of other passengers who were filming this. And this manager was pointing out to this quiet child who was terror-stricken because he was being called out as unfit and unsafe and a danger to the normal world. He was pointing out to this child and saying, look, ye to panic mein hai, he is in panic. And passengers were telling him, he's not in panic, you are in panic. So I completely agree with what Joe is saying. It's really about inclusion. It's about cultures of practice. It is about cultures and practice of respect and dignity. And I did hear the CEO of Indigo speak, and I was fairly appalled. I was really appalled because I was there, and what I saw was violent humiliation, flagrant humiliation of 3 passengers who have trusted Indigo for 50 travel trips.
Yes.
What really happened there was a man who had decided that he was going to exercise power. He did not consult or listen to anyone. We asked him to call the doctor at of the airport to certify him. There were doctors who said, we will certify this child. We are traveling with this child. This person was not willing to listen and not consult. Is this the culture and practice of inclusion across Indigo, and I would say across all airlines, that we are going to laud today and let
Not at all. Not at all. The aviation regulator, the Director General of Civil Aviation, the DGCA, says they formed a 3-member team. They're going to conduct a fact-finding inquiry, and all of these videos hopefully will be looked at and assessed, because what what did this young man do to spark off this whole confrontation? But Jo Chopra, we don't have Jija Ghosh. We're not being able to get through her. We have bandwidth issues. I'm running out of time. I want to just ask you one thing, if you could address. The CEO of Indigo repeatedly said in our interview that, look, this family has flown with us 50 times. Using it so as to say that Indigo has been their choice of airlines and Indigo has never prevented this child from flying with them. This was a one-off, something happened today. They will get to the bottom of it, but as of now, their crew did the right thing. Your response to that?
I don't want to keep responding to what the CEO says. The argument is not with him. The argument is with a systemic system of injustice, and that's what we have to approach. We cannot keep focusing on individuals. It's not that one boy. It's not that one airline. It's the whole system, and that's what we're talking about. And we'll only change it when we address it that way. A wheelchair to that boy is not going to solve the problem. Calling the parents heroes because they're bringing up their son is insulting and demeaning to everybody involved. It's not an individual problem. It's systemic, and we have to approach it that way. I don't care what he says. He's deluded. He's got his own view of things, and he's running a company. That's his job. My job is to advocate for the rights of disabled people.
Thank you, and we are grateful as a nation for all the activists who speak up, and we all need to as individuals, as Manisha Gupta did. Thank you all for joining us.